I love mythologies. I've loved them since I was a little kid, especially Greek mythology. But I've realized in the past few years, it's possible that I might love Norse mythology even more. Although it's just mythology to me, it's different for you. For you, it's your religion. How'd you get involved with it?
Well, I guess I mean I was raised Christian in the Methodist Church and everything, and a lot of what I saw and experienced from the people in the church just didn't didn't sit well with me. It didn't resonate. I mean, the whole "judge not, lest ye be judged," and then they were sitting there talking about how horrible people are, and it's like, but you're judging people right now. It didn't make any sense to me. Um, But I mean, one thing that you mentioned is like mythologies. Everything is a mythology. The Bible is a mythology. It's not it's not fact. It's not concrete. It's the same thing that the Nordic myths are, the Greek myths, the Celtic myths. It's all a collection of stories designed to inspire and teach. So I always call it like the Christian mythology, the Muslim mythology, the Judaism mythology. It's all the same thing. It's still just a collection of myths and stories. And I don't like when people call what I practice my religion, because paganism is not necessarily a religion per se. There's no set way to do anything. Paganism is a very individual path. So I mean, there are people out there that I think that they call them Sartu, I think is what it is, which is, people trying to take paganism and turn it into a religion, but it's not. Paganism it's a very personal journey. So how I choose to honor the Nordic gods is not the same way, my neighbor would, or you would, or even my wife would. It's very different because, especially with Nordic paganism, each deity is individual. They have their own set of goals and beliefs and what they stand for. One thing that, especially someone that's learning, trying just getting into paganism especially from Christianity, I always tell them, it's like, look to Balder, Baldr. He's basically the Nordic equivalent of Jesus. He was died. He came back. He's going to come back for Ragnarok, and he's going to do away with the old gods and bring in a new peaceful era for uh, basically for mankind. He's Nordic Jesus effectively,
It's a funny way to put
and
it. I never heard that, but that I could see the way that that translates.
yeah, I mean it's not an exact translation, but the idea behind it is the same. And the funny thing is, when you look at everything, the idea of Balder was around long before Christianity came about. The main reason a lot of people don't know that is because nothing was written down. It was a very oral tradition. But yeah, like in the Roman time, and the Roman times at the birth of Christianity, they were still fighting the Nords and the barbarians. So what a lot of pagans practice is older than Christianity and Islam, and maybe even to a point Judaism, but the timeline gets a little sketchy at that point.
I think it's really fascinating how the pagan traditions have survived for over thousands of years. Like, it really blows my mind sometimes when I'm just sitting in my living room watching a movie or a TV show and they mention Zeus or Odin. It's like, wow. Even if it's like a Marvel movie or something, it's like, wow, that tradition has still persevered after all these millennia. It's interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, the pagan practices that started back in the day, that we still have today, is it's the original cultural appropriation. The Christians just accepted a lot of pagan practices to make it easier for the pagans to convert.
Yeah, yeah, I find that
But
interesting that
yeah, I
happened.
mean, the decorating of the Christmas tree, that's straight Nordic heritage. The massive celebration in the beginning of winter, that's straight out of Roman mythology and Greek mythology. It was called Saturnalia.
Yeah.
But but the Christians, they didn't like that. The pagans were having fun and celebrating when the original idea of Christmas was a quiet time of meditation and contemplation and just spending time with the family. They didn't like the fact that the pagans were partying, so they just said, "Oh well, we party too, but for a different reason."
Even Easter. I remember you and me talked about Easter.
Yeah, yeah, because the symbolism behind Easter, the egg, the bunny, and all that, that's rebirth and fertility, which is springtime.
Yeah. And remind me again, it's a Viking goddess, isn't she? Easter.
Um, she's got different names. Esther, Oster, uh, Estri, and I forget the other one. There's no real Nordic goddess that you would name that would have that name. Easter is more like a celebration of the rebirth of the world. Who is it that I'm trying to remember who that season honors in the Nordic
Isn't it Freya
calendar.
or Idun?
Idun, yeah, that's right. Sorry,
Hmm.
I'm tired, so I'm not recalling everything like I should.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. It don't feel like the spotlight is on you and you feel pressured to say something. It's all good. It's just shooting the breeze.
Yeah, no, I
But
got you.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I just think it's fascinating. But going back to my original question, how did you get involved in this path? What is it that made you Nordic pagan?
Well, when I started my journey of paganism, a lot of it is paying attention to the signs and those things that you see in the world that call to you in a certain way. And for the longest time, I kept seeing snakes everywhere. And when you look at the significance of a snake in most old belief sets, the snake is a symbol of healing. But in the Nordic traditions, the snake is most closely associated with Loki, the trickster, and Loki is a teacher. And I realized at the time that I was on a journey. I was on a journey looking for something. I needed guidance. And that's when I started realizing that, okay, there's Loki, this god is calling to me. So I started reading up on him, and that's kind of how I fell into Nordic paganism about making the sacrifices, the offerings, building the altar, and what the Nords stood for, and what their kind of paganism is.
How did you know it was Loki though?
It was a lot of research, and it was a lot of research as to what the spiritual significance of a snake is. And for me, it wasn't so much of a healing journey as it was a searching journey.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. What I mean though is maybe someone else could see snakes and think, oh, this is, maybe it's Shiva who's calling me. And they end up going towards Hinduism. How did you discern that for you it was Loki? Was Nordic belief something that you were already looking into before you started seeing snakes?
At the time, no,
I
it really
see.
wasn't. And like I said, when I was doing my research, finding out who the snake was who the snake, what the snake meant, who it was special to, and who it signified. None of the other journeys of what I needed at the time was what I was looking for. I wasn't in pain. I wasn't trying to recover from something. I wasn't looking to hurt or destroy anything. I literally just needed a teacher. And out of all the ones for Snake, Loki was the only one that signified as a teacher.
Mm.
And then, when I met my girlfriend at the time, now wife, I was seeing sunflowers a lot. Sunflowers are very special to Freya, goddess of the home, magic, cats, war. I mean, women in general. So that kind of steered me more towards the Nordic pagan, more towards Nordic paganism at that time. And then as I've grown, it's like, okay, when I felt my wife was in danger, I was noticing goats everywhere. Goats are very special to Thor, the protector. And now it's like I'm kind of on a journey of seeking wisdom and knowledge for the sake of knowledge and wisdom. And I see ravens and crows all over the place. Special animals to Odin. So it's like a lot of what I need in my life. That's what I'm seeing. That's what's calling to me, and that's how I know what's special to someone.
Mm.
Like especially if you look in like the Greek stuff, the sun, Apollo. That's never appealed to me in any way, shape, or form. Especially in Texas, the sun's always just hot and brutal. So it's like I've never felt any kind of significance to that or any of the sun deities.
Mm. Have you ever convened with the gods in your dreams?
Yes. Um, and sometimes what that is, like I'll have a question in my mind before I go to sleep. And it's like, I'm looking and, I say to myself, I put it out there that I need an answer. I'm looking for something. And while it's never like a sit down conversation like you and I are having, it's always more more visual, more metaphorical than anything else. So I kept a dream journal for a long time. So anytime I had one of those real intense, vivid dreams, I would write it down. And it's like, what do I remember most out of this dream? It's like, oh, I remember, like in some instances, being in battle with my brothers at my side. It's like, okay, what's the significance of that? Oh, Odin, omens of Ragnarok, stuff like that. So that's how I really determined what the dreams meant, who was talking to me, and what they were trying to say. Not just like this is what I wanted them to say, but it's more like this is what I remember, and this is what I felt, and this is what called to me. What does that mean?
Mm. Wow. What has being on this journey done for you the most? How has it transformed you the most?
No, before I started the journey, I was very, very timid, very shy. I didn't like talking to people, no self confidence. I was basically just like beat down. And as I've continued my journey, it's just, I've developed this inner strength that, because I know whatever happens, the gods are standing with me. They're not going to make things easier on me, but they will stand and fight with me. If I get beat down, they'll hold a hand out to help pull me up, which is very, very comforting to me because I feel like I have like my fate is determined by me and my actions, and they will determine. And in the end, when the time comes that I die, they will determine whether I'm worthy.
Yeah, you and me had a fascinating conversation about Valhalla in the modern age. It's not
Yeah,
necessary for you to die in battle today to go to Valhalla. It could just be you struggling with something.
right. Yeah, definitely the modern take on with Valhalla has evolved into not just so much, physical combat causing death, but yeah, like dying of cancer. You've been fighting this disease and it just won. You still fought. The idea of, you've been fighting this depression for a long time and unfortunately something happened that you just couldn't bring yourself out of it. You still have that opportunity to go to Valhalla if Odin finds you worthy with your death. Granted,
Which is
taking
something
your
that
own
I
life.
find, which I find that fascinating because that was a question I always had for modern pagans that believed in the Norse tradition. How do you go to Valhalla now when we don't have, hand-to-hand combat with swords and stuff like that? So it's interesting when you explain that to me that it just it doesn't have to just be battle.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be combat, but it's still a
Combat.
struggle.
Mm.
And if you try and you try and you try and you give your best to overcome whatever it is, then you're still worthy. And leading up to Ragnarok, every night you wake up, you go to battle with your brothers. If you make it through the day, cool, you feast at night. If you don't make it through the day, you wake up the next morning, you keep doing it again. You're training for that day. And I love that.
With religions like Islam and Christianity, they're sort of an evangelist. They want to spread the faith, they want to convert people. When it
Yes.
comes to something like Norse paganism, does that element exist in it? Does it want to convert people? Does it want people to join?
Not so much. Once again, paganism is a very individual journey, but even historically speaking, the Nordics people have been very, very accepting of other belief sets. I mean, they found old altars to the Nordic gods that also had an altar set for Christians and any others that didn't follow their belief set because I mean they accepted that's your belief set. That's you. We will accept your belief set even if it's not ours. Very pragmatic people.
Yeah. And I always wonder what would our world have looked like if the Vikings were not defeated in England? Because so
Well,
much of that has changed a lot of our history. It'd be a very different America. It'd be a very different, a lot of things, considering how much the British did across the globe. So I wonder if the Vikings were not defeated, how would the world have changed? What would, for example, the tolerance be like and stuff like that?
I mean, if the British had played fair, then it would be a very much more accepting world set because the Celts, the Nords, they they tried to live in harmony with each other outside of the occasional raid to prove themselves in battle or the disagreements they would have from tribe to tribe. But as a people, once again, they were very very accepting of others. So I firmly believe the world would be a lot better if I believe the world would have been a lot better had the barbarians at the time thrived. But when you live in a cold wasteland, it's really hard to thrive. And actually, funny enough, since you said it, you realize Viking is a verb, not a people, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, explain that.
A Viking was a raid to prove a warrior's worth.
Hmm.
So you needed supplies. You had a bunch of warriors that needed to prove their worth to Odin. You went on a Viking.
I see. I always thought it was a term, Vikinger.
Um, yeah, the act of going on the one who goes on a Viking
I
or a
see.
Viking.
I see. Are you Scandinavian, by the way?
Actually, no. Bloodline. I'm primarily Czechoslovakian.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. And
No, I did that. No, I did the 23andMe, and it was mostly Central European mutt. Mostly Czech, Central European mutt, and then I saw like 1% Scandinavian. So for me, that was hilarious.
did you ever delve into the pagan roots of people in Eastern Europe?
A little bit. It was kind of hard to get in. It was kind of hard to get into that because as Christianity spread into Eastern Europe, a lot of the records and everything were destroyed, and that past was basically erased as much as possible. But even then, that never really called to me so much as the Nordic paganism.
Hmm. Is there any one Norse god where you see most of yourself in them? And it's actually a question I wanted to ask you earlier.
If anything, I would say probably early Loki before he became a dick, because I am a joker, but I also take those moments to teach people and guide them along the way.
Hmm.
Because Loki wasn't always a dick in Nordic mythology. At one point, he was highly accepted amongst the Aesir and the Vanir, but it wasn't until he came, he didn't get invited to a feast, showed up, insulted everybody, and then went away. And that's when the rest of the Aesir and the Vanir were like, "No, he's an asshole," and he turned into the asshole that they needed.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that because this one time I had a friend, he invited me to a wedding, and it was a pleasant surprise for me to see that. And I remember just thinking then, wow, the feeling somebody gets when they're invited to something is so beautiful. It literally
Hmm.
fills you up with just it's a wonderful feeling. And I was thinking to myself, I should invite people more to different things because it could really make someone's day. So I love how you mentioned that. It's like he wasn't invited to the feast and just it can really make a person bitter when they feel left out.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a strength in your kith and your kin. So to not be invited to something as someone you thought were your kith or your kin, that can turn somebody. That's also why the guest right is very much an important thing to in Nordic paganism.
Hmm, I didn't know that. And what does kith mean? Is it akin to kin?
Kin would be your family, your kith would be your close friends.
I see. I didn't know that. I didn't know kith was the term. That's cool.
Yeah,
Close friends.
yeah. Think of it kind of like your blood family and then your adopted family.
Yeah, that's a way to put it. Yeah, for me, when it comes to a lot of these stories, I think what always drew me to them as a child is that I saw something of myself in them, and like
Yes.
right now I just shared that example with you about, how Loki wasn't invited, he felt pissed off. I feel like that's a very human thing, and I think a lot of the pagan stories or mythologies in general, right, across the world, they're such human stories where you can really find yourself in them. And that's what art is, right? We're
Yeah.
attracted to art, we're attracted to particular movies or songs because we see something of ourselves in them. Is there a particular story where you see much of yourself in it?
That's a good question. I can't really say for sure because for most of my life I've been a loner, and a lot of the stories, especially in the various mythologies is all about strength in numbers and family.
Hmm.
So nothing really that I see as like this story is reminiscent of me and my life.
Hmm.
Although I will say my favorite story of the Nords is one night Thor got drunk, lost his hammer, a frost giant recovered it, and to get his hammer back, Loki convinced Thor to dress up as Freya to fool the frost giant to get his hammer back. It To me that's just a hilarious story, and that's honestly, young drunk me, that's what I would have done. Say, hey, he likes your sister. You should dress up like your sister to see if you can get your hammer back.
Yeah, that is a funny story. I remember that one. I There's so many stories in Norse mythology that call to me, but have you ever played God of War?
uh, on which one, like the original God of War or the new remake where
The
he
new
took on the
remake.
Nordic gods?
Yeah, that one. Have you played it?
No, I didn't really play it. By that point, I kind of started losing interest in games like that.
Yeah. It was a wonderful game, and it was actually my stepping stone into the my interest in Norse mythology. And at the end, Kratos, throughout the whole game, Kratos, if it's not his business, he doesn't care. He just walks away, right? But at
Right,
the end, they show Balder and he's gonna kill his mom, Freya. And at this point, Kratos is like, he stops him when he doesn't have to. And then he kills him and he's like, we have to be different now. And that triggers Ragnarok. And the way I'm saying it sounds so lame, but if you watch it, it's beautiful. It's like real cinema. And I just loved it because it just shows the complexity of life and also just Kratos saying we have to be better. Like just because something doesn't affect you personally doesn't mean you shouldn't get involved if there's a right and there's a wrong, so to speak.
yeah, and to a point I agree with you on that. But there's also a lot of times where it's just like, yeah, that's really they need to work that out themselves. I don't need to get involved with that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good way to get into that combat. And I'm 46 years old. I don't need to be getting into fights anymore.
Mm. Well, tell me more about yourself. What kind of music do you listen to?
I'm very much a heavy metal guy. You know, Powerwolf, Brothers in Metal, Nightwish. Even with the American stuff, I'm still big into like Judas Priest, Metallica. Especially recently, Disturbed, and uh, I just found a new band on my Spotify that I've been kind of delving into. What is their? I can't remember the name right now. Yeah, I definitely like the European metal. Not so much like the black metal, but that has its time and its place. But I'm very much a metal guy.
Were you ever into
But
Alice in Chains? You strike me as if you
yeah,
would be. Okay.
yeah, Poison's one of my favorite songs. I mean, I got a covers playlist. I got three different covers of Poison on it.
Really?
Yeah,
So, as in your covers, you've done those.
no, just cover songs that I found on Spotify.
I see. I see. Yeah. Do you ever listen to bands like Wardruna or Hyla?
And they haven't popped up on my Spotify yet.
I see. They do like they try to revive Norse music or Viking music.
Okay, so very similar to Brothers of Metal then.
I guess. I've never heard Brothers Metal, so I wouldn't know.
Oh yeah, they do. They have songs literally like Njord talking about the god Njord,
Oh,
talking
okay.
about Valhalla, the battles, Ragnarok, the world serpent, Thor, Odin, Loki. They got all that stuff.
Yeah. That sounds cool. What's a song you recommend by them?
My favorite by them, I love Heavy Metal Viking. That is like my favorite song by them.
I see.
But the one that popped up on my playlist the most that got me into them was Njord, Njord.
And he's the god of the sea, eh?
Yes,
Yeah.
you got to see in storms.
He's not like alone in the stories. Do you
Say
know?
again?
Is he alone in the stories? Because I remember you talking about, a lot of these stories are about family and to be in battle with your kin and your kid. If I'm not
Yeah, he was.
mistaken, yeah, go ahead.
No, he was more. He's more a personification of the forces of nature. So he does tend to be mostly by himself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. That's
But
cool.
yeah, that's a lot of what when you have a god that's a personification of something like Surtur, personification of fire and destruction. Yeah, he has his minions, but he's usually seen as an individual by himself.
Mm. I didn't even know he was referred to as a god.
He's not, but especially with the Nords, they didn't really so much call them gods. That's very much an American thing. They were the Aesir and the Vanir. The reason that they started calling them gods was because when the Christians started to come in, they referred to as every heavenly being above them as a god.
Mm. Yeah. But Surtur, he's more like a Jotun, right? He's a giant, a fire giant.
The fire giant, yeah. Jotun is
Yeah.
a frost giant.
Okay. So what's the term for a
Yeah.
fire giant?
Uh,
No worries. I don't mean
I
to put
don't
you on the
recall.
spot. I don't mean to put you on the spot. But another question I was curious about earlier, you mentioned sacrifice. What does that mean in the
Hmm?
modern day with paganism?
Sacrifice is giving up something of yourself to the gods. For me, I'll build a fire in my fire pit, and when I make a sacrifice, it could be, like a little poem I wrote, or I've done blood sacrifices. I don't like doing them,
And what does that
but
mean? Like you just cut your arm open or your palm?
yeah, I
Whoa.
just bleed into the fire a little bit.
Whoa.
But most gods don't want a blood sacrifice. That a lot of it's going to depend on which of the gods you're trying to appeal to for the sacrifice you would make for them. Um,
Who would you appeal to for a blood sacrifice?
um, that would be like a generic. I don't have anything to give
I
at the
see.
moment, so this is my blood. But
Mm.
for most gods, it's like if you have mead, they love that. Mead just being like wine made out of honey instead of grapes.
Yeah, interesting. In Mexico, there's this, it's not really a deity. Maybe some would refer to it as that, but it's called the Santa Muerte. I don't know if you've heard of it. But one of my friends,
The state of death, yeah.
yeah. So my friend, he was saying, the way it works with the Santa Muerte is if you promise to give it a penny every single day for whatever you want, you better make sure you give it a penny every single day. Because if you don't, it will take something from you. Is it like that with the Nordic gods? Where if you've made a promise to one of them and you didn't fulfill it, something bad could happen to you?
That would depend on the deity and like your willingness to actually see through that promise. Because a lot of people will make vague promises to the gods and not even do anything about it, so the gods will just turn their back on you. Um, Very few of them are what you would consider vengeful. They'll just be like, think of it more like a parent. It's like, okay, you promised me you would do this, you didn't do it, so you're on your own now. Then you come back, it's like, oh, now you're coming back for help. Is that really what you're going to do right now?
So,
So
because you're Norse,
so,
or I want to clarify the term. Nordic pagan is what you call yourself?
yeah,
Okay. So now that you're a Nordic pagan, what is your view on different kinds of paganisms and beliefs like that? Do those pantheons still exist for those people?
yeah, yeah. I fully accept anyone else's belief sets, even if I don't follow them myself. Whatever makes you a better person. So,
Interesting.
I mean, if you're Catholic, hey, be Catholic. Makes you a better person. You're happy. You're making the world a better place. Go for it. The weird one. It's like if you're a Satanist and all you want to do is go out, get drunk, and have a good time. Hey, go for it. I'll party with you.
Sometimes people conflate paganism with Satanism. What's the stark difference?
Pagan. In general, paganism isn't so much a belief in a deity as in the powers of the spirit world. The reason most people refer to it as paganism is because the Christian term for pagan is a non-Christian. So, when you really look into it, a Muslim is a pagan. A Jewish guy is a pagan. A Buddhist is a pagan.
Yeah, yeah, that is
But
fascinating.
when you look at the idea of paganism, it's more about embracing spirituality and the idea of multiple gods. One of the big terms that have been throwing around recently is neo-paganism, where it's not even so much a belief in gods; it's just in like the forces of nature and just the spirits in general.
Yeah, that is true. I've heard of that before. Yeah,
Yeah, they're very hippie people.
yeah, yeah. I enjoyed speaking with you, David, again, and I'm wondering, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say you didn't get a chance to, or something on your mind you wanted to express?
Not really. Just whatever your path is, find it. Walk it. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It's your path. So if it's following the Nordic gods, do it. If it's following the Greek gods, do it. If for you it's Christianity, Islam, just find your path and follow it. Be true to yourself.
I like that. Be true to yourself. Yeah, that's something that's
Yeah.
they put that on Jim Morrison's tombstone. Be true to yourself,
Yep.
true to thy spirit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
So
hey,
yeah,
David.
that's really about it.
Yeah, it's great catching up with you again. Thanks for speaking to me again. Yeah.
Hey, not a problem. Like I said, if you ever want to go out and grab some drinks, hit me up.
Yeah, well, I am Muslim, so I don't drink. But yeah, it'd be awesome to meet again and talk again. That'd be
Well,
cool.
you don't drink grape or grain. I'll bring the mead. That's honey.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. I remember hearing that before too.
Yeah. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
what you can drink and I know what you can't drink.
yeah. Have you ever seen The 13th Warrior?
Yeah, it's based off the book The Eaters of the Dead by Michael Crichton.
Yeah, it's funny. They have a scene in there about that with the mead. It's funny.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was the
Oh yeah.
podcast. Thanks again for
Awesome.
coming on, man. It was cool talking again.
Not a problem. You ever want me to come back on and talk about other stuff? You got it. I'm a gamer. So
Oh, really? Okay, yeah, that would be
yeah.
cool. I game too. You ever play Assassin's Creed Valhalla?
I didn't like Valhalla so much. My favorite Assassin's Creed was Black Flag.
That's a good one. That's a really good
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
I think that was probably just the best Assassin's Creed was ever going to be was Black Flag.
Apparently they're
Unfortunately, the
doing a
spinoff
remake
sucked.
of that one. They're
Okay.
making a remake of Black Flag, apparently. But yeah,
Yeah.
it would be cool to catch up with you again. I enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure we can have a bunch of others as well. Your guest 181, so that's cool.
181. Nice.
Yeah, I
Yeah, you'll
had on
find him a very unique individual.
yeah, I had on a professor of Norse studies from Norway on here as well. We talked a
Oh,
bunch
that would
about
have been
stuff like
cool. That
that.
would have been fun to talk with him.
Yeah, he was cool. He was really cool. But yeah, I suppose until next time we'll keep in touch.
All right, yeah, you got my number. I'll text you every now and then.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. Well, you take
All
care,
right,
David.
thank you. You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.